Hello. We are going to talk about touch-ups. So these touch-ups that I'm talking about your like 1 year, 18 month, 24 month and beyond touch-ups. So these are the clients that you've already seen and now they're coming in for their yearly touch-ups, and we are going to try to figure out how to address these clients, what to do, when to do it, and so on. So at these appointments, the very first thing that I do is I, of course, meet them, greet them. I will have them redo their health history form just to make sure that everything is still fine and dandy. I will sit them back in my chair, clean them up, sanitize them up. I'm gonna inspect the work and I'm going to see before I ask them what I feel like needs to be done. Then I will ask them, what are your goals for the appointment today? And this is where things start to get a little interesting because everybody has different goals. Some people will say things like, hey, well, it's been 18 months and, I felt like it was time. This kind of tells me they are going to be like an easier client. They don't really know what they're in there for. They just kind of think it's time. Lots of people say things like, well, I noticed the fronts are starting to fade out. We'll also say things like, well, I've started putting brow pencil on, so they're starting to get a little bit lighter. People will say things like, I feel like the arches have kind of gone away. I mean, they're just basically pointing out little things that they want addressed, which is perfect. I ask about these type of things. I also ask about darkness. So what I like to do is I like to kind of push their memory a little bit, if you will. And I'll ask them things like, okay, so I know this was a long time ago, but do you remember when we first got our eyebrows done and you were in your dark phase? Did you think they were too dark? Like, were you a little afraid of them? Were you a little like, those are a little bit too dark? If they say yes, then I know generally I'm probably not gonna have to go much darker. If they say no, I actually liked them that dark and I was kind of bummed when they lightened up, then that's also giving me different information on what I need to do next. So lots of different scenarios, but essentially I'm learning information, I'm gauging what I need to do for my client. I'm also looking at the brow to see what I feel like I need to do for my client. For predominantly my entire career, I have worked with a mainly organic based ink. So I am pretty much warming back up every single client that comes into my studio. What I do after that varies greatly from client to client. And it varies greatly because each client has a different goal, but each client also has different things that are going on with their skin type, their lifestyle, the target color that I chose. There's different factors. We'll use the word factors. There's different factors that are going to play into what I'm going to do next. Generally speaking, your fits 1s, 2s, and 50% of your 3s can probably stick around with an organic ink still, because these clients, their target color has less black, which would be a carbon black that I'm working with. These clients have a lighter target color, which means there's less black in their target color, which means they are generally the clients that age really, really nicely. They do cool just a little bit, but they age really nicely, and they are the ones that I feel like are the easiest to work on. Now, because there is less black in the ink, generally speaking, again, these clients might need more frequent touch-ups. My clients where I'm using a darker ink and there is more carbon in that ink, these clients might cool a little bit over time more, but they might not need as many touch-ups. I mean, of course, there's like so many other factors like your age, your skin type. If you're older, your brows are going to last longer. If you're younger, your brows are probably going to fade out faster. If you have an oily skin type, you're going to fade out faster. If you have a drier skin type, you're going to fade out slower. I mean, there's so many different factors, okay? So as maybe a general rule, our Fits 1s, 2s can, if you're using an organic ink, you might be able to stick with your organic ink. But on your darker Fitzpatricks, it also is going to depend on like what they're asking for. Maybe we move them over to an inorganic ink now. So let's give a couple different scenarios. I'll maybe put a client right here. So this client here, I had originally used a mainly inorganic ink with her. And she came back, these I wanna say are like 2-ish years old. And she came back, faded out really well, which looking back, because she is a lighter Fitzpatrick, I probably could have used an organic ink or a mainly organic ink. I'm just gonna say organic ink, and you guys now know that everything's pretty much a hybrid, okay? I don't wanna have to keep saying mainly inorganic or mainly organic. It's too much verbiage. So I probably could have used an organic ink with her, but I don't remember exactly what inorganic ink I used with her. I wanna say it was either Jen Boyd or the Monica line. But she's really, really faded out, little pinky hue, salmony tone to the stroke. So I went ahead and moved her over to an organic ink. And now she is going to get more bang for her buck. So these brows are going to last her longer. I'll probably see her in like 2.5 years now, maybe. Now let's just say for shits and giggles, I had used an organic ink on her in the past. Because she is a lighter Fitzpatrick and she has mature skin, then I probably would have just warmed her back up and then maybe used the same Target color from her first appointment and lightly laid that in the skin and sent her home. So that's maybe how I would have handled it had I used an organic ink. Would have, could have, should have. Don't know exactly what they would have looked like at this point because I didn't do that. I used an inorganic ink. Okay, this client right here was from a masterclass that I did. I want to say these ones are about 2 years old as well. And these have faded out beautifully. They faded out beautifully, in my opinion, because it's a trickier brow, and it's a trickier brow because 1, I'm using an organic ink, and 2, her Target color, it's darker. So the darker and darker we get, or the darker Fitzpatrick you're working on, the harder and harder it can be long-term. So I feel like these aged beautifully. Now, lay her back, talk to her about her goals, and she wanted like darker, really more saturated strokes. So I know that if I were to do that with the organic line, then we would be in a world of trouble 2 years down the road. So what I did was I warmed her back up, or any little spots that I felt were too cool, I'm gonna kind of warm it back up just a little bit. But then I will switch over to an inorganic ink. And this is exactly what I did for her. I switched her over to an inorganic ink, and then I really, really, really packed in these hair strokes. So my technique is exactly the same. My hand movement is exactly the same. Everything is exactly the same. When I'm working with an inorganic ink, I'm just gonna have to really slow things down. So how fast I travel through the stroke, I'm gonna have to really slow down. So I tell my students it's like getting stuck in traffic. Instead of moving 60 miles an hour on the freeway, you're gonna move like 30 miles an hour on the freeway. You're gonna slow down. This doesn't mean our hand whip speed yet. necessarily needs to slow down. This just means we're going to travel through the stroke slower. And sometimes you'll be able to get ink into the skin just fine like that. I do have a lighter hand, so I feel like I need to do that plus slow down my hand whip speed. So instead of moving it faster, I'm going to slow it down. I'm still doing that whip motion though. It's just a slowed down version. So if you look at my work and you feel like it looks more saturated or different, of course it does, right? As an artist, I'm going to continue to grow and things are going to change. But it's the same technique. It's the same technique. It's the same hand movement. It's the same everything. I'm just adjusting what I'm doing depending on what needs to be done. And you should be doing this client to client no matter what. Some clients are going to take ink super fast and we can move through the stroke faster because we don't want to oversaturate those hair strokes. Some clients are going to take ink slower. So then we need to move through the hair stroke slower. Like you should already be adjusting your technique based upon your client's skin type. But I'm also going to be adjusting my technique based upon what type of ink I'm using. So that is what I did for this client here. So this client here is a Fitzpatrick 2. I did not snag a before picture, unfortunately, so sorry. They did lighten and they cooled just a little bit. She's got really pretty skin. She's got very nice skin, and she has lighter brow hair. So again, sit her back, clean her up, inspect myself. I can immediately tell that I want to warm them up just a smidge, and then I'm going to ask her about her goals. And her almost exact words were, well, I just felt like it was time to come in. I know you said that they would, I would need a refresh maybe every 18 months. So she came in for an 18-month touch-up, and I asked her about darkness, and she said she did not want to go much darker. She just wanted them kind of cleaned up, refreshed. So this tells me, okay, she's basically happy with how dark they are now. Maybe she wants them a tiny bit darker, and she just wants them to look fresher. So then I'm going to use my organic ink again. So I laid her back, I warmed them up a smidge with my orange, and then I looked back at her notes and I used the same ink that I used from her very first appointment at her 18-month touch-up. Now, had she said, I want to go a lot darker, then I would have still warmed her up, and then I probably would have switched her over to an inorganic line and really packed in those hair strokes. So this client here is a Fitz 3 to 4 with darker hair, darker eyes. She's got her eye color is my color, her hair color is my color, but she definitely has more of a tan hue to her. So I would say she's like 3-4, okay? So at her first appointments, her first appointment and then her 6 to 8 week touch-up, I did use Brovie, which is my organic line. So sit her back, lay her down. Because my target color is darker, I know that I just know walking in, my dark-haired clients, my Asian clients, my Hispanic clients, if I use an organic line on you, I'm gonna have to warm you back up. I'm pretty much warming up everybody that comes into my studio because I think they need it. And I think that a warmer brow just looks better. I think a cool brow, I would rather have them too warm than too cool. I think it just makes the face look better and happier and warmer. I feel the same way with lip blushing. I feel like warmer lips just make the face kind of come alive. So again, I sat her back, I asked her about her goals, and she wanted to go a lot darker. She wanted more saturated strokes. So I warmed her up with my Brovie orange. And then I used the LI line in Espresso, which is like one of my darkest colors. And I really, really packed the strokes in and gave her a really defined look for her touch-up. Yeah, and she will age and these will fade out. And I'm confident packing these strokes in like this with this line because I know that they are going to fade out, and I know that they are also going to kind of warm as they fade out. So what I've kind of been trying to do is like rotate the client. So if I used organic the first session, then maybe at your year appointment or 2-year appointment, maybe I'll use inorganic, and then 2 years from then, maybe I'll move you back to organic line. I'm just trying to, I'm always on the hunt for the best possible long-term healed results. So that's kind of where I'm at in my career right now. So this client here was an interesting case. She does have a trickier skin to work on. She's got kind of like the thicker porous skin, but she is transitioning all of her hair to gray. So she is actually requesting a cooler tone. Now, I'm never, ever, ever going to put gray in the skin, and I'm never, ever going to use a cool-based organic ink. I don't think so. Just probably won't happen. But because she's looking for a cooler tone, what I did was warm her back up. And I explained to all of my clients. I know so many clients say, I don't want them warm, I don't want them warm, I don't want them warm. I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, but today they're going to look warm, okay? So I did warm her back up, and then because she didn't want them much darker, and because she is looking for a cooler kind of tone, I continued to stay with my organic Broby line. You could have easily used like a cooler tone from an inorganic line. That would have worked just fine as well, but that's not what I did for this client. So as you can see, there are many, many different examples and scenarios and situations where you are going to need both lines, organic and inorganic, in your studio. And there are going to be 1,000,001 different options for when you should be pulling what line and why. And these are all things that we're going to cover. These are all things that I want to teach you. I want you to be super, super confident in choosing an ink line, when, where, how, etc. These are all things that we kind of have to learn along the way because I don't think they're really taught at your foundational training, which is understandable, right? Like, you're already learning so much information during that foundational training. Like, here, let's throw on what's going to happen 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the road. I mean, that would probably just be like information overload. So we're going to be discussing touch-up, future touch-up, and what you should and shouldn't be doing. Again, as I always say, and will probably continue to say for the rest of my career, permanent makeup is not black and white. Like, there are some black and white, yes, you should be doing this, and no, you shouldn't be doing this, but it's art. And if I do something one way and somebody else does it different, it doesn't make either one of us right or wrong, just different. There are better ways to handle a situation and then worse ways to handle a situation. I just want you guys to be as educated and confident as possible. I want the permanent makeup industry to continue to have a good reputation. I don't want botched jobs out there. I want everybody to be confident going to a permanent makeup artist. Even if it's not me, I want good information out there, good education out there. I want confident artists behind the needle. I want this. I'm sure clients want this. I know you guys want this. So I hope this course is going to hold your hand and like walk you through different scenarios, give you guys valuable information. So eventually you don't have to refer back to me. Eventually you can just use your perfectly fine brain and think for yourself, like, okay, I know this, this, and this, so this is what I'm going to use for this particular situation. So let's go watch some touch-up videos.